Hey everyone, welcome back to the Living in Maryland channel. So today we're discussing utility costs of living in Maryland, specifically Central Maryland, which is Greater Baltimore on down to the DC area and everywhere in between, since that's what I know best. So if that's the kind of information you're looking for, make sure to stick around. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Living in Maryland channel where we discuss all things living here in the great state of Maryland. So if that's the kind of information you're looking for, then you are definitely in the right spot and we really appreciate you being here. And if you are considering making a move here to Maryland, if you're wondering whether purchasing a home is the right decision for you and your family at this point in time, we absolutely love helping people out with making that move, making that transition here to Maryland. So however you feel most comfortable reaching out, we'd absolutely love to help, whether that's by phone, text, email, days, nights, and weekends. We've got your back when moving here to the great state of Maryland. All right, everyone, so the first thing I want to discuss is water. So water is going to be paid directly to the county that you live in. So there's not going to be companies that you shop or anything like that. That's kind of how it works here in Maryland. And another cool thing that I realize a lot of people aren't used to or kind of surprised when they come here is that we pay water quarterly. So every 3 months, you'll get a bill in the mail. And you're going to pay it directly to the county that you live in. So for me, I get a bill from Howard County and I just pay it directly to them each quarter. Now for me, our bills have been, we've got an 18-month-old, so we're starting to use a lot more water, whether it's just the baths, the playing outside and the hoses running and all this kind of stuff. So I expect our bills to go up. But for a long time before him and when he was really young, our bills were running about $100 to $110 every quarter. I expect those to jump up to probably closer to $150. But that's kind of the range that I tell people, $125 to $175 every quarter, depending on usage, depending on family size and that kind of stuff. So it's not too bad for me. I moved here coming from Southern California, and we were dealing with droughts, and we paid it. That's probably what we were paying every month, like around $100 to $115 a month. So now moving to Maryland, it's been, now I'm used to it, but especially in the beginning, it was definitely, kind of a nice change of pace and definitely more affordable. So be interested to know what you're paying, now and where you're coming from. But in Maryland, that's what you can expect as far as overall cost. Now, also in Maryland, typically our water bills, at least for Howard County, that's what I can speak specifically to, and surrounding counties as well, is our sewer is bundled in with the water. So when I'm saying the overall cost is this for water, I'm also, combining that with sewer, because that's how the counties typically do it. So if you happen to purchase a home on septic, then it's going to be actually less. So it's probably going to be closer to like $50 to $75. Every quarter. So and then that's assuming that you're still on public, water too. So that's probably slim chances of having septic, but no well. So, but just a heads up on that too, that the water is combined with the sewer. So I'm assuming most of you are going to be on public water and public sewer, but that's just something to keep in mind too, depending on the area you're looking in. Are you going to be on public connections, and just kind of factoring that into your calculations as well. And then if you are considering purchasing a home, one of the cool things here is that the title companies that facilitate the real estate transactions here in Maryland, they take on the responsibility of putting the water bill in the new owner's name. So that's actually something that's taken off your plate when it comes to that. So if you are looking to purchase a home, once you get to closing, you're really only looking at putting BG&E or whatever the gas and electric company is in your name. Water, you don't really have to worry about. So because it's handled at the local county level, the title companies make sure to get that paid. They don't want a lien to be put on the property. And then also another reason why they do that is because they want to make sure that the buyer who's taking over new ownership of that home only pays what they're responsible for, so which would be the day of closing moving forward. So they always hold some money in escrow from the seller and make sure that because those bills come out, quarterly, there's not something every month, They collect the next bill, they pay whatever the seller's responsibility is from that escrow, release any extra escrow back to the seller, and then that bill would then, of course, start to be in the buyer's name moving forward. But that's kind of how the title companies handle it, just to ensure that the county gets their money and that there's not any issues with the water bills. All right, next is trash. So I wanted to kind of explain how this works here in Maryland. So for most of Central Maryland, and again, for Howard County, I can speak to that at a higher level because that's where I live. Trash is for the most part going to be paid through your property taxes. Now, if you're looking in a more rural area, that may change. You know, I know as you get into parts of surrounding counties, like up in Carroll County, parts of Frederick County, Baltimore County and stuff like that. If it's just too rural, then they don't collect it in your property taxes and you just have to call and hire one of the services that's available in that area. But for the most part, if you are coming to Howard County, Anne Arundel County, Montgomery County, Prince George's County, and a lot of Baltimore County that is pretty developed, it's going to be part of your property taxes, and that's not something you have to hire out yourself. So it's going to be paid through the county, and then they're going to hire out whoever comes and picks that stuff up. So cool thing about Maryland is they don't really have, and I say this just because of how it was where I came from, so they kind of have old school trash pickup where, you know, they've got, you know, dudes on the back of the truck who come and throw stuff in there. And I only mention that because where I was in Southern California, it was just one person driving the truck. And then they kind of had the clamps thing that came and picked up the bins and dumped them. And the cool thing about Maryland is when it's old school like that is you can set out so much more and they still take it. So there's been so many times where my wife kind of makes fun of me where I set all this stuff out and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no way they're gonna take all this. And as soon as they grab it, I like look out and I'm shocked that it's all gone. You know, I'm just like, you know, waiting to see if they take it all. So that's kind of one of the cool things. I know about 6 months ago, I had a closing and the seller set out, I mean, filled the entire curb with stuff. And the buyer was concerned because they were like, we don't want this stuff to get stuck here and it to be our responsibility. So, you know, the trash day was coming before closing, so we had to make sure that they actually took everything. They took everything. This was in Anne Arundel County. So I know that they do this kind of all around. So, you know, pretty cool. But I know at least where I came from, if I wanted to do that, there's no way the regular weekly trash pickup would have picked that up. I'd have to call, spend 25 minutes on the phone to order a special, you know, bulk delivery pickup and all this stuff, and it would have been a mess. So it's pretty cool out here in Maryland. They're very flexible. They take a lot of stuff. And then also in Howard County, we have a very, very, very accessible and pretty expansive dump that we use. And this is something, again, my wife makes fun of me for because I'm there all the time. I love, you know, getting rid of stuff and just kind of, you know, utilizing that. So for Howard County, we pay $325 a year, and it's part of our annual property taxes. With that, it's going to pay for your weekly, you know, trash pickup. It gives you the accessibility to the dump. So all you got to do is show your ID. They just want to make sure that you've got a Howard County address, and then they let you right in, and you can take anything here. So I used to fill my truck up with, you know, tree branches. I would trim all of our trees and bushes and all this kind of stuff. I'd fill up my truck and take it in through the residential side, and you can take it all the way back, and you can take stone there. You can take they've got hazardous waste most Saturdays throughout the year, so you can take, you know, gasoline, oil, you know, all brake and transmission fluids, paint, all this kind of stuff. So a really cool thing that's pretty accessible, specifically here in Howard County. I know surrounding counties have them as well, so that's something to look into. But another cool thing is not having to kind of set up that service, so it's just kind of part of the county that you live in, and one less bill that you have to pay once you get settled in here in Maryland. And then in addition to trash and recycle pickup weekly, about 3/4 of the year, I forget the exact dates, but most of the year you do have a yard waste pickup as well. And for us, where we've been, it usually is the same day as recycle. So you can set out any paper bags with, you know, tree branches, leaves, any kind of yard waste stuff, and they'll come by in the truck and pick that stuff up. So it's not something that you have to, get rid of or hire people for. So that's kind of a nice little benefit as well, especially when fall comes around and these trees start dropping. It's something that you'll definitely find yourself utilizing. So something to keep in mind as well. All right, next is going to be the cost of electricity, and I figured I would just pull up a picture of my last bill here so you guys can take a look at that and see what I'm talking about here. All right, so here is a picture of my last BG&E bill, Baltimore Gas and Electric, in the amount of $132.66. And just to give you an idea so you can kind of reference the size home you think you might be having, we're about 2,600 above grade square feet, meaning that's not including the basement. So it's going to be 2,600 plus a finished basement. So you can see here the supply charge is 7.82 cents per kilowatt, totaling $80. So you can see here the supply charge is 7.82 cents per kilowatt. So that's making up a pretty, big bulk of the bill there, which seems pretty affordable when I'm looking at, kind of some solar leases that I'm seeing, in properties that I'm selling and talking to some people around the country. It seems like that's a pretty competitive rate there. And then a distribution charge of 3.5 cents per kilowatt, totaling $36. So those two right there is, $116 of the $132.66. So I wanted to mention those two because they make up almost all of the bill. So something to keep in mind, just so you can see an actual bill here, depending on the size of home that you're used to and where you're coming from. But, it's in summer right now, and we've had a pretty warm summer. I set it at 32. I set it at 73 during the day, and then I bump it down to 71 or 72 at night. And it's, pretty comfortable. And so it's not like we're suffering here. So just wanted to give you guys an idea of kind of what to expect with a bill there. Now you may notice in February there, I've told this story in previous videos. We had just moved into the house at that point, and I did not realize we were running auxiliary emergency heat with our heat pump. So it was not using the condenser, and long story short, when you do that, you are burning a lot of electricity. So I finally figured it out when I looked about 2 weeks into the billing cycle, and noticed that my projected bill was astronomical. So I immediately corrected it at that point, and the bill started correcting from there to where I was expecting it to be. So just a quick little note on that as well. And then in most of Central Maryland, it's going to be BG&E again, which is Baltimore Gas and Electric. So everything's going to be through that one company. And if you are further into Southern Maryland or even parts of Montgomery County or PG County, Prince George's County, you may be on Pepco and Washington Gas. So it's going to be, one of those companies there is going to be what you can expect if you're coming here to the area. All right, and next I wanted to mention, just because I've recently done some deals here with solar, it's just kind of mentioned to people and you all, if solar is popular here in Maryland, depending on where you may be coming from. If you're coming from the West Coast, you may see a lot of that. So in Maryland, it's definitely growing. We definitely have it. It's present. It's not super common. So, but what I do see a lot is I have really yet to see many people own them outright. I ran into more people who did that in California. It just seemed like that was more popular to just own them. Out here, we see a lot of leases. So I see a lot of Vivint specifically, PPAs, which is a power purchase agreement, really just a lease. So you kind of lease the panels, so you're kind of committed to have those panels up on the roof, I think for like 20 to 30 years. And then you're really just leasing, not leasing, you're just purchasing your power through Vivint at kind of a set rate. And then any overage, I think it's split in some way back to you. If you don't use enough, or if you don't use all the power that you produce, it goes back to BG&E, and then you get some sort of credit with that. So that's kind of what I see. And I think in Maryland, we're such a heavily wooded state, it kind of, I don't know, you got to have the right situation to where you get enough sunlight and it's beneficial. So, but we're definitely seeing that grow, but it's just not like, you know, when I'm out in California, I just notice them so much more. So out here, it's just something that's slower in as far as growth and as far as the number of households. But it's definitely something that's coming and definitely growing. So something to keep in mind too, as far as you'll definitely run into that here in Maryland, and it's going to be majority leases. So if you see a home with solar panels, be prepared to have to take over that lease. And I wish I could say that it was super, super easy and that they've gotten it down. But every single time that I do a transaction with solar panels on it, it's kind of a pain in the butt. So just be prepared for that. For some reason, they don't have the transfer process down pat yet. So it's definitely a lot of back and forth, a lot of communication, trying to figure it out. We always get it done. It's just adds a little bit of, you know, a stress element to the transaction. So just something to keep in mind with that. All right, and then lastly, I want to mention oil. So you are definitely going to see that here in Maryland, especially in some of the older homes. So I wanted to just kind of bring it up so you guys can be on the lookout. And depending on where you are coming from, and for me, where I came from, we didn't really see much oil at all. In Southern California, I never saw it. So coming here, it was definitely a shocker. Now, of course, my first home, I ended up with an oil boiler, you know, with the hot water baseboards. And how they got hot and how they worked was via a boiler, which was from oil. So I got to jump right into this and kind of have personal experience with this. So I wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of what that looks like. So if you do see baseboards, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be hot water baseboards, because electric baseboards cost a fortune to run. So if you see baseboards, just kind of, you know, you might want to ask a few more questions just to know what you're walking into. Hot water baseboards can be run by either natural gas or by oil. So we had an oil boiler. We had to get a tank filled up in our basement. It was a 250-gallon tank. We had to fill that, you know, probably 3 to 5 times a year, depending on the year, depending on the winters and all that kind of stuff. Our boiler also heated the water, which I don't know how common of a situation that is. A lot of people, you know, get off of that and just tee off and get a water heater, electric water heater or something. But ours was still tied into that. So we used ours year around. It was, you know, always using that. It doesn't use a ton for hot water. But for the baseboards and for heat, it definitely did. So when we were there in a 1,700 square feet rancher, we were paying, when I broke it down, we were paying about $400 to $425 a month during the winter to heat that. And that now we're on a heat pump in a home, you know, almost twice the size when you factor in the finished basement, because the last house didn't have that. And the bills is showing to be less than that, because we've been here all winter. So I was kind of able to look at that. So just something to keep in mind too, when you're on oil, it's definitely going to be more expensive, something you want to factor in, something you want to be prepared for, and just, you know, ask some questions and know exactly what you're walking into. Because for me, I didn't figure that out until I was at the home inspection. We were, you know, looking for the hot water heater. Okay, where is it? Can't find it. Is it in the attic? I hope it's not in the attic. It wasn't in the attic. We finally figured out it was the boiler, and tied into that system in the basement. So if you see that, something to kind of look into and ask some questions on, so that you know what to expect there, that it's definitely an option here in Maryland, that you'll definitely run into it. More specifically in homes built, you know, probably pre-1975. So if you're looking at like homes 1980 after, you're going to run into a lot of furnaces, gas furnaces, and a lot of heat pumps. That's going to be the majority of what you see. But if it's before that, definitely something you want to keep in mind and know that it's definitely a possibility of something that you might run into. All right, everyone, thanks so much for watching. I hope you learned something new today. If you ever have any questions or need anything at all, please feel free to reach out, and we'll see you at the next video.